Airdrops and ICOs are hot once again. You combine that with the fact that we are getting close to October, the entire market is currently going bananas. And with all of that in mind, there are 10 projects that we're going to dive into in today's video that I want to make sure that if you haven't heard of them yet, you hear about them today, because some of these are possibly worth a few $1,000s. Some of these are worth six figures as far as the airdrop that you can potentially get. Now, overall, one of these airdrops is worth well over $500-600 million just by itself. You combine 10 of those, that's quite a bit of money up for grabs, and I want to make sure that you are fully capable of getting it. Now, as we dive into these videos, realize some of these are kind of speculative as well. Some are guaranteed airdrops. Some haven't come out and guaranteed anything, but they have point systems, and we'll highlight those when we do get to them. If you enjoyed this video, if you enjoy content like this, time and energy that was put into it, consider subscribing. You enjoyed this video, smash up the like. Without further ado, let's jump into the video. Now, if anytime you're looking for a project that maybe you're a content creator on X or other platforms, maybe you have just a decent following and you like to post Twitter threads and just overall posts in general, you like to be engaging on social media, highly recommend that you check out Kato. There are a lot of opportunities. The token itself has gone up tremendously. It has a lot of potential. Essentially, Kato is like a center point where you can earn rewards by producing content about some of these projects. And these projects set aside a portion of their tokens or a certain amount of money for the top creators, top social media engagers, whatever you want to call them. But you don't have to have a massive following every time with some of these. You can really hone in on some of the projects and create really good content and still get rewarded for that. So do be mindful that as we look at some of these, there are some pretty big projects coming up. Maverick is one of those. It is a RWA project. You look at Falcon Finance. They recently just did their TGE. There were people that walked away with $50,000-$60,000 when it comes to Falcon Finance. You see a few others out here as well, just ones to definitely keep your eye on. And in the end, you can still be able to participate in some of these projects where you create content about it and you can get rewarded even though they already have a token. Some of them don't have tokens, some do, and some are really good. For example, Somnia had a fantastic overall launch. And then others, you know, what you got in return for your participation just really wasn't maybe worth all the time. So it is kind of a hit or miss. Sometimes that was the case with Open Ledger. So it is a hit or miss. Do be mindful of that. Some are really good, some maybe not as much. But that is why it's important to participate in as many as possible and get engaged. Now, the other side of Kato is the Capital Launchpad. Now, unfortunately, because I live in the United States and the majority of those maybe watching this video are non-able to participate in this, I do realize that there is a portion of the audience that is from outside the US where this is extremely important. So I want to briefly highlight it because you can participate in the first project we're going to talk about in today's video called Limitless, where you can allocate, essentially buy into the ICO. And a lot of these are the ones that launched off of Kato have done really well. And Limitless is one that we're going to be talking about. As overall, there's a ton of other projects here. Limitless is simply just the one that has the most traction, the most exposure, and a ton of current excitement about it. So let's talk about what is Limitless. Now, if you've heard of Polymarket, you've heard of the likes of was it Cliche? There's a couple of out there, but essentially prediction markets are extremely popular. It was Kalshi, that's what it is, Kalshi. I think everyone pretty much is familiar with Polymarket. I'm not at all familiar with Kalshi, but Polymarket, obviously extremely massive, very big. $9 to $10 billion valuations, Kalshi at a $5 billion valuation. And when you take a look at Limitless right now has over $400 million traded on its platform. And as you can see here, is only launching at a $75 million valuation, and they are oversubscribed to their allocation request by 85x as it is right now. Their target raise was only $1 million. They're almost 86% or 86x oversubscribed. They're expecting to reach 100 million by the end of the week. So be mindful that there's a ton of momentum behind this, especially when you look at the valuation of only $75 million. obviously and unfortunately, if you're in the United States, you can't participate in the ICO, but there is a way that you can participate, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. Just looking at overall the platform itself, very, very similar to what you're going to see with other platforms. You can see overall trading volume over $400 million. It is, I would say, smaller, but that also means when you look at the upside opportunity, a $75 million valuation is almost nothing. I think very realistically, this could launch at a $500 to $1 billion fully diluted valuation. With that in mind, that has a ton of upside to it. The biggest thing that you can do right now with the likes of Limitless is participating in their liquidation and some of the trading itself. So you can provide liquidity and you can also trade. Those are the two ways to earn points right now. And as a friendly reminder to repeat, Limitless traders and creators get a priority allocation on their community cell on Kato. So you can also earn points when it comes to the likes of this as well. So when you look at some of these here, you can see place limit orders near the midpoint to get rewarded. So you can get a reward for that. There are some of the liquidity options available, but I think this is one that has a ton of potential. And when you look at a lot of the opportunities that are out there, when you take a look at what's coming for the overall prediction markets, there's a reason why you're seeing Robinhood involved in it. I think there's a ton of opportunity with Limitless. I'll leave a link to it down below, and I'll leave a link to all of these down below if you do want to go and check them out. Now, moving on to number 2 on the list, and that is Lighter. Lighter is essentially was the primary first competitor to the likes of Hyperliquid. The main difference is Lighter allows you to trade without any fees. Now, obviously, if you have a liquidation, the liquidation goes back to the capital. And so when you take a look at the growth that you've seen with the likes of Lighter, if you look at the public pools. So you can see the overall TVL sitting right now at $242 million. That has consistently grown. They are really right now second to the likes of Hyperliquid on the open interest. So there's a ton of growth when you take a look at the overall trading volume. They're up there in the top 3. A lot of exciting things for the likes of Lighter. It is a perp DEX. And obviously the biggest thing about it is the fact that you have no fees when you're trading. So you're essentially saving yourself money compared to other perp DEXs out there. So you can participate here. You have a 62% APR, which is kind of insane. Really, really awesome. Outside of that, Lighter actually ends today on its perpetual trading points. That said, they are launching spot. And so it's going to be interesting to see what kind of campaigns come around when it comes to spot trading and some of the additional features that they're bringing to the platform. Now, when you take a look at overall points, if you look at the leaderboard, right now I have 14 points. I kind of got into this one a little bit late. Unfortunately, a lot of the points were started very early on, but there's still ways to earn points. Don't miss the fact that there's still plenty of time. They don't expect a TGE and an airdrop until end of this year potentially. So be mindful of that. They don't have a guarantee on the airdrop percentage and the overall when it's going to happen. So just be mindful of that when it comes to Lighter. Now, the biggest thing is what is going to be the valuation. A lot of people have a lot of different numbers. This is one I thought was pretty decent as far as a conservative, fully diluted valuation to earnings ratio of 43, which is pretty common amongst the local peers. When you look at something like Hyperliquid, that would give it about a $4.3 billion valuation. We did a prior video on the likes of Lighter. We said we could expect about a $4 to $6 billion valuation, which I think this is right in there, which would mean about $125 per point if it was a 30% airdrop. So all things considered, my 14 points within the platform would do quite well for itself. I mean, it's not nearly as much as some others who have thousands of points, tens of thousands of points, but in the end, it does have some upside opportunity and still opportunities to earn moving forward. So do be mindful of that. Moving on from the likes of Lighter is another perp DEX called Pacifica. Now, Pacifica is an up-and-coming perp DEX on Solana. In fact, it's probably one of the biggest perp DEXs currently, and it actually just surpassed other DEXs when you take a look at Jupiter and some others out there that are on Solana. This was dropped earlier today, talking about this. Jupiter and Drift being both surpassed by the likes of Pacifica, almost double the volume on Pacifica compared to Jupiter and Drift. Now, be mindful that when a lot of these projects do have campaigns and ongoing competitions to be able to get points, that is going to inflate the overall trading volume because a lot of people are trying to trade to get a lot of points. Be mindful of that in a short term, but it is impressive to see Pacifica grow as fast as it has because Pacifica is primarily self-funded. They have a very experienced team, but overall, this is something that I think, when you look at some of the opportunities, this is definitely one to check out if you want exposure across multiple different platforms and you want different perp dexes. Each one's going to have a different valuation. Each one's going to have more people competing versus less. A lot of focus right now is on Aster and on Lighter. Maybe this gives you an opportunity to look at some of the smaller ones, some of the beta plays to really get a good allocation. And a lot of these also have trading competitions. So you don't really have, you had some trading competitions on some platforms like Hyperliquid. You had ones on Lighter. There's ones that come and go on some platforms. This is a great way to be able to, if you're a good trader, be able to get some points, 80,000 points up for grabs for those trading on Pacifica. Be mindful of some of those. The overall UI, I think it's fairly decent, nothing too crazy. Obviously, most are going to connect with this to a Phantom wallet, and unless you use Solana on MetaMask, which just confuses me, so I don't do it. I just keep it to my Phantom. But overall, you can see pretty decent overall volume. Open interest is relatively small in comparison, but I think that's probably due to the fact that you're going to have a lot of people trading just in general, trying to accrue a bunch of points. Moving on past Pacifica, we're going to get to Paradex. Now, this is backed by Paradigm, which is pretty significant to the likes of this platform. Now, there are a few things to likes of this that are a bit different. And the biggest thing that you see here is the introducing zero fee perps are now live on mainnet. Starting today, every retail trade on Paradex pays $0 in trading fees on 100 plus perpetual futures. So kind of copying to a degree what Lighter is doing, but there's a ton of opportunity in the likes of Paradex. There are some actually unique aspects and features to the likes of Paradex that you don't see on other perpetual dexes. And obviously, I think the biggest one that you're going to see here is you have vaults and different ways to participate in DeFi, not just DEX aspect of perpetual trading. So there are some pretty unique overall trading vaults. I think there's a lot more opportunities, a lot more features that make the likes of Paradex that much more appealing. Now, they do have an ongoing campaign for the airdrop. You can see some of the details. I'll leave a link to this down below so you can check this out. I highly also recommend going to airdrops.io for future airdrops if you're looking at them. But this is one that has a ton of backing from the likes of Jump Trading and Dragonfly Capital. So a lot of focus on Paradex. This is one that is a little bit ways out there, but the earlier you get involved in some of these, the better. Now, one that is a guarantee airdrop is the likes of Edge. And edgeX actually is kind of right up there when you're looking at the top overall trading based on volume. When you look at Hyperliquid, you look at Lighter, and when you look at edgeX, is kind of up there competing for like number 3. So a ton of volume, ton of momentum for the likes of edgeX. The UI, a lot of these UIs, in fact, are very similar. If you look at this and you look at the likes of Pacifica, very, very similar. I mean, there's not a huge difference on the UI itself, but there are different strategies. You can see here, there's going to be points systems that are involved. A lot of these have referral point systems as well. So if you have a decent following, there's trading leaderboards that you're going to be able to get overall points for, profit leaderboards. So there's a lot of uniqueness to the likes of edgeX. Like I said, this is one that when you look at the point system, the amount of opportunity that is going to be available to by participating in something like this, tons of upside, tons of opportunity, another one of those perp dexes. So right now we're looking at the likes of Lighter, you've got Pacifica, you've got Paradex, you've got edgeX, and there's going to be a couple more that we're going to be looking at. But this one specifically bulk recently, because right now there's a ton of competition when it comes to different projects, layer 1 specifically, and their perp dex, the top perp dex on that layer 1. And obviously you have Avantis for the likes of Base. You have Bulk that is looking to be the number 1 for the likes of Solana. So they recently just raised $8 million led by and participation including likes of Wintermute, some pretty big names on here as well. And the big thing that you have to understand with the likes of Bulk, another perp dex, it is currently in alphabet and you have to have an invite code. No current invite codes that I could find right now to be able to participate, but one to keep your eye on. It's not currently, not a lot of details. It's still relatively small, but it's one I highly recommend keeping your eye on. When there's opportunities to get in, getting in literally on the ground floor is going to be the kicker and the key to something like this once it does become available. Now, moving on past perp dexes for just a second, we're going to talk about USDai. More recently, you had the launch of XPL, which is the native token for Plasma, a multi-billion-dollar layer 1 stablecoin-centric blockchain. Now, that did extremely well. Not to mention those who contributed to the essentially ICO and the fundraising for the likes of Plasma contributed capital to it. You contributed just as little as $1. You got over $10,000 airdropped to you in XPL tokens. So very, very successful, not to mention the price of XPL pumped after that. I think still a ton of potential long-term. It's still very early for the likes of Plasma. Now, backing and behind this, you have USDai, which is in partnership with the likes of Plasma. They also had a recent investment by the likes of Bullish, which IPO'd recently. I did a whole video on the likes of USDai yesterday, so feel free to check it out. I do have an interview that I'm going to be having with USDai and one of the team members coming Monday. That will probably be posted later on next week. But if you have any questions for this project as we dive into it, let me know and I'll make sure to ask that in the interview. But USDai is essentially a synthetic stablecoin, synthetic dollar that generates yield that is backed by AI infrastructure, specifically GPUs. And you can look at some of the things that they're doing. Very, very impressive. Like I said, I did a whole video on this yesterday, but right now they have consistently, as they've grown, they've 5x the overall total value locked from just the beginning of September till now. Several times they've had to open up the cap and it gets filled very, very quickly because there's a ton of demand for something like this. And there's a ton of demand for AI. So it has really two markets captured very, very well. Now, when it comes to participation, this is one of those that you have an ICO and then you also have an airdrop. Now, if you're in the United States, you're not going to be able to participate in the ICO, which is, I don't think, the worst thing in the world, even though the majority of the tokens are going to go to the ICO. A portion of the supply, 30% of the supply, is going to go towards the airdrop. So be mindful, you're only competing against other people in the United States. The entire rest of the world is competing for ICO. And I think that is really where the key opportunity exists. Right now with the airdrop, you can get allo points, which essentially goes towards your allocation. And the more allo points, the more that you're going to be able to get. And for the ICO, you can see I have airdrop aligned because everything that I'm participating in right now is in what's called USDai. And then other aspect to the stablecoin is USDai. Now the problem is because the TVL is maxed out, you can't deposit. So right now the only way you can get SUSDai is on a DEX or something to likes of Pendle. Now I did a video on this yesterday, but I'm going to briefly go through the process here. This is the current platform. You can see I have 3.7K total allo points because I was exploring with it yesterday. If you go over to Pendle, you can buy YTs, talked about it yesterday, or you can provide LP. Now, if you go over here and you go to my portfolio, you can see I'm participating both in the yield tokenization boost and the yield tokenization max. So I'm getting a lot more, obviously, allo points for the likes of buying YTs, but you have to realize those have a depreciating value and essentially end at zero at the end of it. But be mindful of the fact that this earns you a lot less. A little bit further in the process, there is the high risk, high reward opportunity with the likes of buying YTs for SUSDai. Obviously the risk is if USDai doesn't grow and doesn't launch at a high valuation, the allocation that you get in the airdrop may not be worth what you lost in buying YTs, which you can go over here. And if you were to buy YTs, you can essentially zap into buying YTs, which is yield tokens. Like I said, I talked about this in a video yesterday. There's more videos on YouTube talking about what this is and how this works. I highly recommend that you do check it out because it is a little bit more complex. But the very simple process to this is essentially just connecting your wallet. For me, in this instance, right, if you're going to click Ethereum, you're going to click ETH and you're going to zap directly into YT, or if you want to provide LP, which is obviously a safer route, you're not going to generate as much overall, but it is much safer depending on how bullish you are. You can get into the LP, and as like I said in earlier, I have both the LP and I have the YT. A little bit of both, a little bit of exposure to both of them as well. But like I said, this is one already $500 million total value locked. The growth of this has been exponential. The success that we've seen with the likes of XPL only fuels the potential for the likes of USDai, and I have an interview with one of the team members come up Monday. So a lot more exciting things, a lot more information coming on that one. Last but definitely not least is Aster. Now we've been talking about Aster for a little while. This is one of the projects that I'm very, very excited about. I've been participating on a lot of different methods, testing out a lot of different features. 4% of the tokens, which is right around depending on the price of Aster at that time, about $500 million to $700 million worth of Aster is allocated for the next airdrop. Now, we don't know when the exact date for the airdrop is going to occur, but we do know the amounts of the tokens. That's going to be 4%. Right now, this week is the last week in the epoch in stage 2 to be able to earn. That ends October 5th at midnight UTC. And as you can see, this is the next stage. Right now, the biggest things to understand is there are going to be some different stages. If you go over to Aster, they have the updated information. As far as the multi-dimensional scoring, they have some details here. They have some hodler rewards. There's a lot of things. If you haven't explored the Aster ecosystem, I highly recommend that you do so. But there are some things that as you get into this, you can see active traders, 133,000. I'm in the top 25% of overall active traders based off of overall allocation. So it's gonna be interesting what the value, what those numbers kind of look like when the airdrop allocation actually begins. And right now, the numbers have increased for those. So users now earn 5x increased points for holding time in Epoch 3 and 10x increased by the end. So there are some features that are increasing, some boosts by joining a team. If you haven't joined a team, highly recommend that you do so. And then that starts stage 3 after October 5th, which is going to be more focused on spot. It's going to be very interesting to see how that works out. So that is everything we're going to be talking about in this video that we planned on. But if you stuck around to this part, I want to highlight a few extra things that I think are really, really exciting. Projects that don't necessarily have an airdrop guaranteed, but are kind of in that ecosystem where there could be some potential for them. So the first one I want to talk about is called ProjectX. ProjectX is on Hyper EVM. So Hyperliquid actually opened up the point system again. There's some speculation as to whether there's going to be another Hyperliquid airdrop. So getting involved in the Hyperliquid ecosystem is something that I wanted to do. And right now I am currently just generating yield on the likes of my XPL USD0 position. Right now you can see the APR is 666. It varies a little bit here and there. And when you take a look at overall liquidity, $92 million TVL, tons of volume. A lot of that volume coming from Hype USDT0, which has a decent APR as well. You can see some of these others as well. Be mindful, you have impermanent loss. So do be mindful of how you participate in. You must understand how DeFi works, how some of the different features work. For me, I don't have a crazy amount of money locked up in this, but I do have some just as exposure to be involved in the ecosystem, and I don't mind some of the APR that is here. There are some others that, if you want to differentiate, you can do that and get some exposure. But this way kind of gives me exposure a little bit to the upside of XPL as well. The other thing that I want to briefly touch on is a project called Legion. which essentially allows you early access to ICOs and pre-token sales. It's kind of one of those things, unfortunately, being in the United States, I don't get access to, but there's a project that's launching on Legion that has a ton of momentum called yieldbasis. There's a really good thread by Cryptophile, which I highly recommend. Following gives a lot of great entry opportunities to a lot of different projects early on. Talking about launching yieldbasis. This is by the individual who built CRV, a $20 billion plus protocol. So if you do want to check out more about the likes of yieldbasis, not going to go into it in full depth in this video, but this is a really, really good thread that I'll leave down below. And if you do want to join the cell, you can, but be mindful of that. I'll leave a link down below for it, but be mindful if you're in the United States, you aren't going to be eligible for it. So like I said, this is going to be a lengthy video, but hopefully you got a lot of great value out of it. All the links are going to be in the description of the video if you do want to go and check them out. Hopefully this video provided you value. If it did, smash up the like. If you enjoy content like this, consider subscribing. And until next time, guys, stay invested.